Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing Kuzushi. The first time I was introduced to Kuzushi, it was more of like a judo term. It was a way of creating a reaction or off-balancing that allowed you to attack certain openings. It is readily available in everything we do, whether it's stand-up, on the ground, top, bottom. It's part of what we do. We just don't always name it. We'll sometimes say off-balancing or creating a dilemma where someone has to respond. But in essence, it's all Kuzushi. If you can watch or envision a judo athlete or a wrestler, let's say the wrestler has a collar tie. And let's say if you're a gi person, the judo practitioner has a grip on the collar versus behind the neck. If I wanted you to step a certain way and maybe expose your legs, I might snap you down with either one of those grips. You will naturally either plant your hands, or what's most common is that you're going to step forward, plant a foot, and try to posture up in response to what I'm doing. People will normally do the opposite of what you're trying to get them to do. In defending that, your opponent steps in, creates a weighted foot, and instinctually tries to counter what you're doing by posturing up. In that posturing up, it exposes the legs or the hips, and I can either go in for maybe foot sweep or any other type of throw from judo that requires that movement. Or if it's or wrestling or jiu-jitsu, we can come in for a single leg, double leg, maybe a duck under. So it creates movement that opens up a window for us to attack with. Sometimes people view it as I'm moving the person. And yes, there is some of that. You're removing an ability to respond to something that you actually want. It'll turn strength, that response of them trying to posture up, they're using strength as a defense, into an ability to expose something else that you can take advantage of. The three layers of Kuzushi, if we're going to be a bit more technical, are balance. And sometimes that looks like pulling a collar drag, and you're off balancing them forward into the spot that you used to be in. Because usually when you pull that collar drag, you're skipping or shifting just out of the way. Sometimes it's forcing them to post. Like, let's say I am doing a butterfly sweep and they post the arm. My goal may not have been to conduct the sweep as a whole. If I got the sweep, great. But it might be that I want that arm. So when I do this butterfly sweep, I'm shifting their weight. And in order for them to prevent the sweep, they have to post an arm. When they post an arm, now you can go shoulder clamp and attack that arm. So sometimes it's not going to look like a complete off balance. Sometimes it's going to look like you giving me something that I wanted anyway, but you were too defensive to give to me, that I incentivized you to do it for me. Sometimes it's breaking alignment. Like, let's say, for example, the snap down that we discussed earlier. If my opponent is aligned, he has equal footing, weight on both feet. He probably has one foot forward, one back, so that he can adjust as needed. But he doesn't have everything weighted on the front foot. So when I do a snap down, everything comes to the front foot, causing him to misalign. His head is being pulled down further than he'd like. So he wants to realign. So he starts to push off that foot, making it heavier. And he wants to posture back up. And oftentimes they never go back to where they were. It goes further than they like because it's a knee-jerk reaction. And that misalignment gives you an opening to the legs, to the hips, sometimes a duck under or an underhook. That's kind of what we're really trying to get at. Misbalance or alignment in their body that gives us a window. Structure is also a sense of a Kuzushi, collapsing someone's posture, like I mentioned. You can also do this from any host of positions from bottom. One of being, if you're in, let's say, close guard. We don't like when the opponent is straight up in high posture because it's harder to strangle. I need them closer to my hips and chest. So when I can break that posture down, let's say they put their hands on my rib cage and I swim both hands underneath and push their hands outward, the posture's broken. When they come down, I can now go collar choke. I can go triangle choke. I can go shoulder clamp. We can go underhook. We can attack a bunch of different things. When they start to posture up, it gives us another window because structurally they're trying to get their posture back. Now I can go hip bump sweep. I can take them over one side, which is attacking the because I'm not sending them straight back. I'm going over their hip, over their shoulder. And when I do that, I can get hip bump sweep to mount. If they're lucky enough to base with that arm, I can now go guillotine because they're wide open, or I can go Kimura grip and pull them right back to where we were. But now I have a Kimura behind their back and I can threaten that. If that doesn't work, I can re-bump from the Kimura grip. So that Kuzushi is breaking down their structure, similar to if we were standing, but just looks a little different. But it's the same concept. I want to create something first so that they respond, and then I want to get what I really want. These are less about being A to B, like close guard to triangle, A to B. And I wouldn't really want it to be more like, A, they post on my chest, I swim underneath, bring them closer to me, then go for the triangle or hip bump or guillotine or whatever, collar choke. There has to be a genuine intention to create this movement. It cannot be half-assed. If I do a snap down and there isn't major intent behind it, it doesn't really move them. Or it might move them just slightly, but it doesn't create enough of a pause and a knee-jerk reaction for me to really take advantage of it. Although you can sometimes do a feint, pull just slightly just to get them aware, and then do a major pull. And because they're sort of aware and not really, and they didn't take it as seriously, the major pull really gets a reaction out of them. So your intent or your level of intent is an equal part in this process. The reason many techniques for early white belts and even some blue belts does not work is because you're sometimes going A to B without creating or initiating a response. If I want the Kimura from close guard and I just go for a Kimura, oftentimes people will zip up their elbow right to their rib cage, and I can't get around it. It's easy to spot, it's easy to see, and it's easy to respond to. We have to create diversions, and in those diversions is the Kuzushi. If I want that Kimura from close guard, I want to create a downward response. Maybe I go collar choke, or I go cross collar, and then with my left hand, and then my right hand goes a grip just below it, and we start to yank down, or we go side to side until their posture is broken, and I'm pulling down to my chest. What response does that elicit? Either they post first, either they accept, or in a response, they post against your hip rib cage to posture back up, which gives you a wide elbow, or they post on the mat, which is even worse, and now you can go Kimura grip or overhook and start going into other positions. But it elicits something that they have to do in order to counter the thing that you're doing. That's where the magic is. The A to B attacks aren't as fruitful for you early on because they're so easily spotted. It's like trying to invade a castle and you're going right up to the drawbridge and hoping to get in. They can see you coming. They pull up the drawbridge. You have to deal with the moat. You have to now somehow open up the drawbridge, and it's easy. The goal should be, I'm going to create this wooden horse where they then give me a response, lower the drawbridge. That would be posting their hands on the mat or on me in a way that allows me to get the grip that I actually want. And then we start working from there. I have to force them to want to do something, even if it's begrudgingly. When it comes to like groundwork, a really common one for me is, let's say we're bottom of mount. If I do nothing, they're going to get the grips they want. If I want to elicit some kind of response that can get me to freedom, sometimes I wait. I frame. I have my frame against the hip. I'm on my right hip, so I'm a little off to the side. I'm not flat on my back. And I'm reinforcing that frame with my right hand on my wrist. So my hands and arms are making a frame against the hip, and I'm waiting for them to do something that can give me a little bit of an opening. One thing is, let's say they try to control the head. The minute their hand tries to control the head, I'm bridging. So if their right arm tries to go under my head, I don't allow it to control. I bridge towards that arm. And two things are more likely going to happen. Either the bridge is so powerful or they were so off balance that we roll over and I end up in top and they're on their back. Or they are going to post with that hand. So if I become really annoying, anytime they try to grab for my head, my collar, I'm bridging towards that arm. And it forces them to have to keep posting. The added aspect of this is if I'm framing correctly, when they post, their weight shifts just off of you. Again, Kuzushi. In that moment, I can now remove myself from being underneath and hip escape, frame with my legs, go into a guard of my choice. In some instances, stand up and base. It's the response that they're trying to get, control of the head, control of a collar, maybe even control of an arm. If they're going for Americana, bridge towards that arm. If they're going for collar chokes, bridge towards that arm. If they're trying to collect the head, again, bridge towards that arm. And every time you bridge, if your bridge is powerful enough, you can frame and then escape. Kuzushi. You've created movement based on something that was occurring to really open up that window further for you to escape or move out or transition to something of your choice. When it comes to submissions, one of the things that I like to do is, let's say I'm in mount, I like to gain control of the head and go for an Ezekiel. Ezekiel, like I've mentioned before, is low probability. In some instances, I get all the way across and I'm strangling people. Most often than not, 60% of the time, I would say, it's just there to elicit a response. When they bring their hands up to try to defend the Ezekiel, I then transition to isolating an arm. When I isolate that arm, I can go to S-mount. I can go to head and arm triangle. I can take the back if they turn. And that's how you use one submission to facilitate another. Your first attempt may not be the one that you really want. And it's actually better that way. It's better to throw out a feint, a jab, knowing that a jab isn't going to knock anyone out. My jab is the Ezekiel. And then their response allows me to counter with the head isolation, or if in boxing terms, the right or the left, depending on my stance. So my first punch or my first iteration of an attack is just to get you moving, to make a decision. And in that decision, I am well aware of what it's going to be, and I take advantage of the follow-up. It's Kuzushi is sometimes referred to as an invisible skill. It's not something that you necessarily name. Like in English, it's just off-balancing. But technically what's off-balancing depending on the position, or like that's hard to put into words. So the conceptual aspect is sometimes it's invisible. It's not something that you relate to with words. Your job is just to create movement. Don't worry about the A to B. Sometimes your B technique is, like I said, is a throwaway. All it's doing is eliciting some kind of motion, whether it's to pull them forward so they can move backwards, or whether it's to push so they can move forward. Like, for example, when I want a collar drag, sometimes I push them back. And let's say I'm in butterfly guard. And when I push them back, they immediately push into the hand, giving me some Kuzushi, and then I collar drag. They've assisted me in that response. But if they're 50-50 on their weight and their stance and their base is really good, it's hard to go to that immediate response. So I push it a little, just like a little nudge. And when they respond to that nudge, I'm taking them the other way. Same happens with nearly all of my sweeps. None of my sweeps are A to B, like I said. None of them are, I'm going to immediately go to this and lift. Like, let's say if I'm playing butterfly guard, oftentimes it's just a little nudge. If I have, let's say, a shoulder clamp, butterfly, and I'm flat on my back, sometimes I'll start to extend them back, and they'll want to adjust by pushing forward. and I go right back to my back and I flip them onto their back. And I use the sweep that way. If I'm doing a tripod sweep, sometimes I pull in with the collar, and that brings their leg, their outside leg, the one that I'm not controlling as well, a little closer, and then we tripod. If we're doing scissor sweep, I'm in a position, I have cross collar, I have a sleeve, my top knee is across their body. I pull them in slightly, and then they want to pull away, and that's when I sweep. Or I push, and they want to pull back into me, and I pull directly, get them off of their heels, and I sweep. But it's this response that really what you want to work towards you. Anytime that you can initiate these responses, you're not muscling much or at all. If I try to move someone who has complete base, it's almost all muscle. And muscle is going to drain me, it's going to tire me. And when I'm tired, I'm not going to be able to do it. So what we want to do is cultivate a game where you initiate something first and then follow through on the follow-up. If this is brand new to you, let's equate it to just like the collar sleeve, like the collar drag that I mentioned. I might be standing, sitting, kneeling. It is all the same. I have cross collar. Let's picture myself sitting in butterfly. I have cross collar. And I just nudge them forward a little bit. I like pull the collar towards me, maybe an inch or two. Not super strong, just enough. And then when they respond, they try to pull back. I push just slightly, and then I'll feel the weight shift back in, and then I drag. The same with if I want to do certain submissions. I initiate something knowing that they're going to respond in a way that will give me what I really want down the line. And it becomes a game of sleight of hand, and you can cultivate it as early as white belt. You can be just a few months in and understand it from a given position. And as you flourish with it and you start to really understand it from multiple positions, it becomes like a superpower. And it's the reason why sweeps end up feeling so weightless sometimes. I'll hit a sweep and I can feel that I could have hit the sweep if I was 90. And I know it's an exaggeration, but because it was so effortless, I didn't have to put any strength into it. I could have swept someone old, like if I was old. So when you can get to that level is when you really have great expertise of the position. And then when you can hit that on multiple people, regardless of size, weight, strength, it feels so rewarding. Like you hit something and then you start to come over and you're just like, man, I didn't have to do anything for that. They just sort of give it to you. If you have any questions on this or any other jiu-jitsu topics, please let me know. Reach out to me at dfm.2099 on Instagram or Threads. Additionally, I have a free school community for anyone who's interested. DFM Coaching BJJ. You can either search for me on school website, or you can go into the show notes and click there. Completely free. I have all my recorded workshops on there, a couple of audio series. We try to answer questions, talk about technique, super positive and inclusive. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Until next time, thank you so much.